Let's see. You should go. You should be going. Should be going to Shacknews.com to read about this. We broke out all the important stories. There's also just the earnings results story by itself that kind of combines everything you would need to see if you weren't paying attention. Uh, this was a a revenue miss, right? So let's like get that out of the way. They missed by $130 million on the top line, but they lost less than expected, uh, beating the whisper
Yeah.
number by almost, I think, 12 cents or 10 cents, and then beating the consensus number by like three. But when we're talking about a company that, Denny, you remember we did this last quarter. I was like, if they keep spending at the pace that they were spending, they only had about 4 quarters of cash left.
Yeah.
They shrunk their net cash outflow in Q2 from Q1 of 2022 by 46%. So they spent 120 some $1 million this quarter. That's down from almost 236 the previous quarter. So their burn rate is going down. And then the one thing that we do need to break out, there's a clip that I was getting on Twitter when I was talking to you, or when I was like getting here. Uh, Matt Furlong, he thinks they can attain profitability in the coming quarters. Uh, that is not, I wasn't expecting.
Mm.
You've never heard me say, "Oh, they're going to turn a profit this year." I think that they see what I was saying, right? Like,
Yeah.
and it's like this is indicative of a turnaround culture, right? They spent a lot of money. They had to hire a bunch of people. They spent on the fulfillment center. They spent on a warehouse. They spent on a customer service center. They're clearly they invested in the e-commerce side of their business. They obviously did this NFT thing, which horrible timing, right? We talked about it, um, but it's not. This is the point I always made about the NFT marketplace. It isn't losing them money. Like it's
Mm.
just there. Like yeah, they spent money on it, but like operating it doesn't lose them money. So it's not a material either way. You know what I mean? Like a lot of our colleagues in the industry like to equate the failure of the NFT marketplace to the failure of this company. And I'm like, it's just one thing. And there's still a chance. I'm going to throw it out there. I think Skull and Bones is going to release on the NFT marketplace. That's just something I believe. It's a
Interesting.
Ubisoft game, and I could see it fit. This was So the revenue side of things, bad. But if you pay attention to GameStop, like they have 50% off sales like all the time right now. So you're gonna
Yeah.
get hit when you do something like that. So I'm not that surprised that we're seeing that happen. The revenue miss. That's the first time they've missed revenue in a while though. So that's not great. It also kind of indicates like, hey, the video games, what released in the last quarter? Nothing that crazy, right? Saints Row, um, Mario Strikers. You know what I mean? Like nothing.
Yeah.
It wasn't God of War. You know what I mean? It wasn't like there wasn't some huge tentpole thing that you could be like, yep. Whereas last quarter that included the launch of I think like some of the first quarter games. I think Arceus was in there, and GameStop and Pokemon have a pretty good relationship. The other thing for those super stalkers or the people on Twitter who follow GME relentlessly, 71.3 million shares have been directly registered with ComputerShare as of the end of July 2022.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Uh, if you just look at them, those 71 million shares, the players, as I don't like to call us apes, I think it's kind of weird. I call us the players. The players own at least 23% of this company. That's crazy. uh, we have effectively taken over a large part of the float. And that's like, for every person that DRSs, there's someone out there who isn't, but they're still part of the movement. So, like, that's a lot of shares. That's a lot of shares to be directly registered. That's up a large amount from the previous quarter. Going back to the cash conversation, like they have $908 million of cash on their balance sheet still. They didn't take on any debt. They just announced another partnership with FTX crypto exchange. Um, I think there's like I think people like they expect these moonshot projects to go like overnight, right?
Mm.
And I think the NFT marketplace is going to be a slow burn. But like at the core of why I like it, and I don't have a wallet with them yet or anything, but like why I think their marketplace is different is this the loop ring technology, the layer 2 Ethereum stuff that lowers transaction costs, lowers gas fees, and it's also faster to mint. So these are, and Immutable with that partnership, they're like actively trying to offset the carbon impact. So like my point is that you can think crypto is stupid and bad for the environment or anything, but like this is probably one of the most efficient crypto marketplaces and wallets out there when it comes to sending people money, when it comes to trading things. So I just think that there's a long tail for this thing. And if it's a flop, it's not a flop that kills the company. You know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
there. So we'll see what happens on that front. But I do think
Do
that
you
was
expect them to
interesting.
go more into marketing that down the line for the things they're
Yes.
talking about?
Right now, they're just kind of I think the problem at GameStop right now is there's not a whole lot of synergy between the store, like the physical store,
Mm.
and the wallet and this in metaverse play. Like they're almost two separate entities. And like for me, like why not allow people to buy stuff in your store with the GameStop wallet? Like let crypto people buy things in the real world with this wallet.
Yeah.
That seems like an area. They did we gotta break out this story though, because this is fucking nutty bananas.
I guess that would mean that there'd be a new level of training for employees and be able to handle that kind of
Sure,
stuff too.
sure, that is true. Yeah, I like I said, mixed results. I wouldn't say this is like great quarter or anything, but the stock is down 50% in a month, so like it's up about 10% in the last. Let me see what it's up after hours. I think you probably had a quote for it. It's up like almost 12% from today's close. I just think it was a stock that had gotten beaten down. They were piling on to it because of the Bed Bath and Beyond story that happened. The really sad story that happened over the weekend, where the CFO killed himself. He jumped off. He jumped out of a building.
Yeah,
But
I
Bed
did
Bath
read
and
about
Beyond
that.
is not GameStop. Bed Bath and Beyond, yeah, there's a famous shareholder who liquidated his stock in it. Ryan Cohen, who's the chairman of the board at GameStop, but it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to sell GameStop because Ryan Cohen sold shares in a different company. Like, if I sold my Nintendo stock tomorrow, would you be like, oh man, I got to quit working at Shacknews? It's like they're completely unrelated things. So,
Yeah.
like, uh, and I do own Nintendo stock, and I think it's rather cheap here. But yeah, this was it's interesting because this is an example of very low expectations, right? The stock had very low sentiment. Everyone was dumping it. It wasn't happening on high volume though. This is a company with 304 million shares outstanding now after the split. And in the last few days, because the stock has been down 13 out of 14 days
Mm.
the stock had been down. So it's like 2 weeks of unrepentant selling. And there was no news, and it was happening on very low volume. Remember, I said 304 million shares outstanding, right? You're talking about the highest volume day that we had on a sell day was 9.5 million shares. Most days is trading around 4 million shares, which is just not, like I said, it's like a percent of the float. So, like, because there's not many people trading the stock, right? The players are holding with their diamond hands. It's really easy to manipulate it, and that's what they're doing. So they shake people out of the stock. Obviously, the broader market's been going through a sell-off. Inflation is scaring people. The Federal Reserve scaring people. Like all these different things are causing panics. But does it
I
make
see.
sense? It doesn't really make sense for GameStop to go from 20 to 50 back down to 26. Like what happened? Nothing. Nothing happened during that time period. It didn't make sense when it shot up. Didn't make sense when it shot down. Like why is this stock still moving this violently? Is kind of my question. If they covered, if they like to call it a meme stock, like no, it's because it's heavily shorted and almost a fourth of the company is you can't borrow those shares. They're like locked up and hidden from you. So, right now it's reported at Yahoo that the short interest is around 20%.
I
Uh,
see.
and then but that's take into account that there's DRS shares out there. It's probably closer to 30% when you factor in how many people have pulled their shares out of circulation. But it leads to these low volume days that can be easily manipulated. And if you don't have diamond hands, you got shook out of this again. I hope people are just it sounds insane, but the way for the movement to win, and obviously this is semi self-serving, I own GameStop, but the way for us to win is just to hold. Because the longer we hold on to the stock, the more it costs people to short it, right? They have to pay their interest. And I think that's still in place. The thing I took away, I don't know if you agree with this or not, but Matt Furlong sounded kind of confident on this call. We've been listening to these calls for a while. That was the most confident I've ever heard him sound.
Definitely sounded more secure in what he was saying.
Yeah, and to make that claim that they're going to turn a profit in upcoming quarters, I don't think anyone expected that. So I think that's to me that's the big news that we got out of the conference call is that they expect to return to profitability in
Yeah.
upcoming quarters. That yeah, like I would say that it wasn't all great, right? Like and I think some people in our industry like to think that I only report positive news about this company, but we ran that story about the NFT marketplace being basically a nothing burger. And if I was just someone who was going to self-serve our coverage of this, like I would have not run that story, right? I would have been like, ignore it. But yeah, we write the good. We like to be very fact-based. If you read our headlines on this on the news today, everything we're saying, if we're using numbers, we calculated those numbers with disclosed information. Uh, and yeah, I thought it was important for GameStop to say that. I am curious how many people have GameStop wallets? How much money is being held in GameStop wallets? What is
Yeah, I
the
would
total
want to know.
transaction volume?
Any
You know
kind
what I
of
mean?
stats on
Like
that.
they didn't because it wasn't material to the results, they didn't really break it out. So I want to know more about the economics of it. But yeah, I think that it's not like a key point that I think a lot of people in our industry will try to latch onto is that this NFT marketplace is a failure and GameStop's going to zero. I think the NFT marketplace could be nothing, and the company is still in the midst of a turnaround. They're selling more things on their digital marketplace, not just the NFT marketplace, their actual app to buy things. They've expanded their offerings to monitors, all sorts of stuff. Yeah, I think we're in the middle of a turnaround here. And yes, the turnaround happened because of the squeeze in 2021 and the company being smart enough to raise capital at that time, pay off their debt. He talked about that. Like they don't have any debt. So in a time where um interest rates are rising, right? People who are companies who are stuck in a borrowing cycle are going to have to borrow at higher interest rates than their previous debt. That's not the case for GameStop. They really seem to be in a debt-free situation, ignoring that
Yeah.
France loan for COVID. Yeah, I think this is great. I think this is like it's not a perfect quarter, right? But this is GameStop we're talking about here.
Very
It's
true.
not. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you have to like step back and be like, we're talking about GameStop here. We're talking about practice. No, we're talking about GameStop. And like it's not like some fast growing company, but it's also not dying. And that was kind of the point that Keith Gill made in 2020 when he made that huge bet. And that's the point that Ryan Cohen made when he came in at split adjusted $2 a share, right? So I saw some rumors this today that Ryan Cohen was dumping his shares. That's bullshit. And if he does, he has to lock in a massive gain. Like billionaires like to not pay taxes, so he's probably going
Yeah,
to hold on
right.
to GME for a very long time. Um, but yeah,
So,
I don't know.
I mean, moving forward, since you said that you feel like they're in the middle of a turnaround, what would you expect to see from the third quarter that would make you continue to think that if it were to come around further, what
So
would you be
third
looking for?
quarter, what I'm looking for, and uh, I think there's a few things. Like there's, if you want to talk about the mother of all short squeezes, or as it's called, MOAS, um, the direct registration of shares is something I will always keep my eye on as a member of Superstock, and I understand the logic behind it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the goal of the players is to DRS, directly register shares. They want to directly register all the shares. If we directly register all the shares, like 304 million, and there's still a short interest out there, that means there's synthetic shares. We're trying to prove the fraud of Wall Street, and the entities in charge are doing their damnedest to cover up everything. So yeah, it's that's one thing. I would like to see revenue uh, grow again. I would like to, and we're talking Q3 here, but there's not really a whole lot of software that I think is going to push that. So it's going to have to be collectibles. That was one thing I didn't mention. Collectibles revenue is up 26% year over year to 220 some million in the quarter. To me, that's the future at GameStop. It's impulse buys that you make when you're at the mall and you see a cute little Kirby plushie or something. You know what I mean? Like they can, because they acquired ThinkGeek, they can really take a lot of share in that space with that pivot away from just gaming stuff to like nerd culture stuff. I think there's a lot of runway there, and they do a lot of good stuff with exclusives when it comes to that stuff. So
Yeah.
I think that like we want to see collectibles revenue continue to grow. I do want to see. I don't know if it's next quarter or the one after. I want to see an actual third party game developer do something on this NFT marketplace. I think that's going to be a fence post moment for the company. Uh, I want to see them start to break out retail versus online sales. They haven't done that yet. So I want to see how that's going. And then, yeah, the last thing, I want to see them go to cash flow positive. If they can actually manage this company cash where it's cash flow break even or cash flow positive, and I'm not saying they have to do this or anything. Like if they want to invest for growth, fine. It seems like they already did that for the last 18 months, and now they're more focused on operations. So I don't think we're going to see them turn a profit in Q3, but Q4, I think it's possible because
We'll see.
Q4 last year they were still ramping up on all sorts of fronts. This year, I think we're going to see a decrease in that SG&A expense, in a decrease in probably their R&D expense compared to last year because they were really ramping up for the NFT marketplace at that point. So yeah, I think less spending, more revenue is how you get to profitability. So I think that's one thing. But yeah, I like that they're treating their employees better with their stock-based compensation plans. Um,
That's a good point.
yeah, I think I think it's a different company. Like the CEO said, I think GameStop's a different company than it was 18 months ago. I think it's drastically different, and that's a good thing. I want. I feel this way about comic books too. Like I want a physical comic book store to be around forever,
Yeah.
and I want a physical video game store to be around forever. And I know there's like smaller mom and pops in the video game space, but like I
It's
think
not the
the
same as a
industry
franchise.
I think the industry would be worse off if there wasn't a GameStop there. If it was just Walmart and Target and Best Buy and whatever.
I mean, it's the same kind of scenario people ran into when Blockbuster closed up.
Hmm. Yeah, and obviously, I know the Blockbuster comparisons are made a lot. I think Radio Shack is probably a better comparison
Yeah,
to
that's more
GameStop,
of an in
honestly.
between as
Yeah, it's a
far as
little bit of both,
options.
right? But yeah, I think that they got a good team over there, and like they don't get the benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? Like this is like I know they're way different companies. I know they're way different companies. But it's a lot like Tesla 10 years ago. Scrappy, losing money, the media hates them, like There's large industries that want them to fail. Microsoft Game Pass, but Microsoft and GameStop have a deal on hardware. I,
Mm.
I think the hardware makers, it kind of rests with them, man. If we have enough supply of PS5s this holiday, I think GameStop beats their expectations. If we don't, I don't think they can.
I mean, there is
Like
a
there's
stacked 2023 coming up as well.
that's the other thing, man. Like 2023 is like it's a banger year for video games. So like I think you kind of have to be dumb to not want to. And look, if you're not in the stock or you don't trust investing, I get that, but like I don't. I think you gotta be kind of dumb to want to short GameStop here. There's better shorts out there that aren't at the center of a retail revolution. You know,
Yeah.
like go fight your war somewhere else. Is kind of my advice to some of these people. But yeah,
I know you mentioned the Skull and Bones, but in this situation, is this something where GameStop will try and position themselves by reaching out to companies to try and get their
yes,
game to set up shop?
yes. And the reason I mentioned Skull and Bones is there's like several Easter eggs hidden on the NFT marketplace that indicate that. There was also a when they remember it was like 2 months ago or something. They had that showcase
Mm-hmm.
Ubisoft where they showed us Skull and Bones.
It was
GameStop
something.
GameStop NFT liked the tweet announcing it, and then
Okay.
they unliked it. I was
Somebody
like,
jumped the gun a little bit there.
yeah, I was like, huh. And then yeah, like I don't know. There's a pirate mentality among the GME movement. Like we all kind of think we're pirates sailing on the seas and stuff. So like it seems like the perfect game for a bunch of GME loyalists to play. And there are people like that might be the thing that convinces me to get the wallet. Like I'll be like, fine, I'll play this just for science, right? Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
not really a crypto believer at all, but just so I can better understand the ecosystem. If a game that I actually give a shit about is on that marketplace, then I'll set up for it. You know what I mean? I feel like a lot of people in the games media feel that way right now. It's like I don't really give a shit about JPEGs or GIFs or whatever, Like I don't
Yeah.
care about any of that. I don't want to spend $1 on any of that. But like if there's a game, I want to see how it plays, why it's different, is there any value here? Because to me, the value of an NFT game is that it would be a digital game that could be resold. And if the seller chooses, the original content creator chooses, you can get a cut of every sale every time. So
Mm.
you like so for Ubisoft, who are no strangers to selling their games at discounts, I think it makes a lot of sense for those two to partner. So yeah, I'm kind of waiting for that. But yeah, it's the one thing I'll stress, and this is just in general. This isn't just about investing in GameStop. And like I said, I don't want to sound self-serving or anything. This isn't advice. But if you have an investment thesis and you don't give the thesis enough time to play out, you are guaranteed to fail. So patience is a virtue. And I think that some of the people in the GameStop movement are novices to investing and they're
Mm-hmm.
not used to taking 50% declines in a month, you know? Like they don't like seeing their money disappear.
Yeah.
And I a lot of my friends asked me about investing in this company. I told them to stay out of it for most of the year last year. But down here, definitely interesting. And Matt Furlong saying that they're on the you don't say that. You don't say that. You never tell people that you expect to turn a profit. You know the last time I did that at Shacknews, Denny? It was November 2019. And I had this grand plan for 2020 that was going to be all these different events and we were getting paid and we were going to break even. And then COVID hit. So like I've learned never tell anyone that you're about to turn a profit. Ever.
Definitely fair.
So I he has it goes back to what I said. He seems very confident in the plan. And that's a different tone than we would have heard a year ago, I think. And Lola is here now. Hi, Lola.
Well, I think
Um,
that was definitely some good insight. Uh,
yeah, I no, I I study this company way more than any human should. So when I see little things like the cash, you know, now I can say with some confidence that they probably have 2 years of cash runway right now, at least, because they also have a $500 million credit facility that they haven't even tapped yet. So like, why would you short a company that's about to turn a profit for the first time in years and has adequate liquidity with no debt? They have no interest rate risk. The interest rate risk in GameStop is if you're short, because every time the Federal Reserve raises rates, guess what goes up? The cost of borrowing GameStop to short it. So it's like the Federal Reserve is facilitating the short squeeze.
Mm.
And then if this market continues to go lower, everyone's collateral who's short GameStop, let's say you're long Amazon and short GameStop, right? If Amazon's down, your actual margin available to you to short decreases. So in a bear market, I could see GameStop actually squeeze. So that's like the other thing. So I guess it's like it sounds kind of weird because I'm talking about two different things here, Danny. There's like the story of the company and the
Mm-hmm.
story of the stock. And at times they intersect. On days like today, they intersect. But most of the year, the stock is its own machine and the company is its own machine. You know?
Yeah.
And the stock is at the center of just pure corruption on Wall Street. The DTCC, the SEC, the brokerage houses, the market makers, the clearing houses, Robinhood, all those stupid apps that screwed everyone over in January of last year. Like all these things tie together to show everyone. Like, do you trust Wall Street?
Not after everything I've been reading since then.
You know what I mean? So like, why is it that the GameStop shareholder gets demonized more than Wall Street? Like, what has Wall Street ever done for us? Like, that we are like, hey, you can't say that about Wall Street. It's like, who gives a shit? Fuck Wall Street. Like, if this movement, if all we get out of this is better transparency and short selling, it was worth it. Because at the core of the problem is there was not proper disclosure about the risks being taken in GameStop. And the fallout still continues to this day.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, I think that's about it, though.
Yeah, man. It's like
Anyone
there's
in
definitely
chat?
some things to keep an eye on.
Yeah,
Especially once you.
we definitely have stuff to keep an eye on. We have, there's we know that like okay, they launched this marketplace. It didn't really affect earnings either way. So like anyone who was like, oh, the failure of the GME NFT marketplace, that's going to be what kills them. It's not.
It's not that
You know what I
cotton
mean?
blue there at this point yet.
So like, what's your next thing? You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to pick on next? Is kind of my question. And eventually, they're going to run out of stories to write. They're just going to run out. There's not going to be anything that they can
The
break out.
doomsayers, yeah.
And then what? Then you start going after Ryan Cohen individually and stuff. But yeah, uh, That's all I got for now. But I'm actually curious. I tend to do this at least once a day. I try to see what the borrowing cost for GameStop shorts is.
Mm.
Yeah, E-Trade has not changed. It's still 7% annually. It's still a security that is classified as hard to borrow at E-Trade.
Mm. Okay.
But they tend to be late to increase their interest rates. But without fail, every time the Federal Reserve increases rates, that borrowing cost goes up. So right now, after the call, GameStop is still up 11% on the news. So degenerates like me who may have bought call options going into this may be happy about that.
Yeah.
I also hedged myself though, so I'm going to lose money on my put options I bought, but that was to be expected. I'm happy that I'm losing that. But yeah, definitely an interesting day. I can't wait to see how the market reacts tomorrow to this. Um, but yeah, I think we're good.
Yeah. It sounds like that profitability being a thing is definitely going to be something to look over with the confidence they seem to have to make that happen. But
Yeah,
keep an
I
eye
don't
on.
think it'll be next quarter. I don't.
Yeah, that's probably a stretch.
But I think Christmas, if Santa Claus can deliver enough PlayStations, I think, and maybe there's enough Oculuses or whatever they call them, or Swoleds, or
Yeah, maybe there's some behind the scenes conversations happening, which makes them more confident in the supply chain moving
yeah,
into
and
holiday season.
also like partnerships like FTX. That's the largest crypto broker that hasn't been sued by everyone under the sun. So that's a big deal. I still think Immutable X getting Gods Unchained on the NFT marketplace is a big deal. Like that's the largest NFT game in the world right now. So it's on the marketplace as of today. So I think the NFT marketplace, uh, you know, like I launched Shack Pets less than a year ago. It's not Shack Pets did not move the needle on the finances of Shacknews. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
an experiment. We're still doing it. We have plenty more to go. You know what I mean? I kind of feel like this NFT marketplace is similar for them. It's a project that's not going to kill the company, but it could end up being a windfall down the road. Well, obviously, you should download Shack Pets. It's free.
oh yeah, we definitely got some Shack Pets action going down. Yeah,
Nice.
we'll get a nice look at the trailer here in a moment. But thank you all for joining us for
Yeah.
that GameStop earnings call.
Power to the
Yeah.
players.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Thanks for streaming, Danny.
Yep. Fun times.
Yep.
And it's Shack Pets time.
Yep. We'll see you later.